They say every man has his breaking point. That moment when all the rules you've lived by suddenly don't matter anymore. When the anger takes over and you do something you never thought you were capable of. I found mine on a cold Tuesday night in October, standing in front of my wife's boss's BMW with a baseball bat in my hand. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is David Mitchell. I'm 38, married to the love of my life, Melissa, for almost 9 years now. We live in a modest 3-bedroom in the suburbs of Boston. I work in IT for a healthcare company, handling their network security. Not the most glamorous job, but it pays the bills and I'm good at it. Melissa's in real estate, or at least she was, until everything went to hell. We met in college. I was the quiet computer science major who somehow worked up the courage to ask out the vivacious business student who sat next to me in Economics 101. On our first date, she told me she wanted to sell houses because she loved the idea of helping people find their perfect home. I admired that about her from the start, her genuine desire to make people happy. For years, we were that couple everyone envies, the ones who still hold hands after a decade together, who genuinely enjoy each other's company, who rarely fight, and when they do, it's resolved by bedtime. We had routines, inside jokes, dreams. We were saving for a colonial-style house with a yard big enough for the 2 kids we planned to have. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and we were happy. It all started about 8 months ago. Melissa had been working at Paramount Properties for 3 years. She loved that job. Good pay, friendly colleagues, and just a 15-minute drive from our house. Her previous boss, Marion, had been a wonderful mentor who taught Melissa everything about the Boston real estate market. When Marion retired, Melissa even brought her flowers and they both cried a little. That's the kind of workplace it had been. The company had been growing steadily, opening new branches across New England. The CEO, a shrewd but fair businessman named George Whitaker, had decided they needed fresh blood in management. Everything was picture perfect until they hired a new sales director, Victor Harrington. Even his name sounds like a villain from some soap opera, doesn't it? Tall, tanned, perfect teeth, custom suits, and a corner office with a view. The kind of guy who refers to women as females and calls everyone champ or sweetheart. Real charmer. I didn't meet him until the company Christmas party. By then, Melissa had been working under him for about 3 months. Something was off, though. My usually vibrant, talkative wife had become withdrawn. She'd come home, barely touch her dinner, claim she was tired, and go to bed early. I'd find her staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., claiming insomnia when I knew something else was keeping her awake. Our Friday night tradition of trying new restaurants? Forgotten. Movie nights? Canceled. She started taking longer showers as if trying to wash something off that wouldn't come clean. Twice I found her clothes in the laundry hamper when she'd only worn them for a few hours as if she couldn't stand to have them on anymore. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd just say work was stressful. The new boss has different expectations, she'd say, not meeting my eyes. I tried to be patient, to give her space. Maybe it was just an adjustment period. Maybe she'd open up when she was ready. In retrospect, I should have pushed harder sooner. I should have seen the signs. At the Christmas party, I finally understood why. The event was at the Liberty Hotel, a fancy place downtown that used to be a jail. Ironic considering how trapped Melissa would soon feel. She spent an hour picking out her outfit, changing clothes repeatedly, finally settling on a modest black dress that she'd worn dozens of times before. "You look beautiful," I told her. "Why not wear that red one you bought last month?" She shook her head quickly. "This is more professional." I didn't understand then that she was trying to be invisible. At the party, Melissa stayed close to me, her hand gripping mine tightly whenever we moved through the crowd. She'd jump slightly when someone approached from behind. She nursed the same glass of wine all evening, afraid to dull her senses even slightly. Then I met him. "Dave, right? Melissa's husband?" Harrington approached me at the bar, bourbon in hand, smile not quite reaching his eyes. "David," I corrected him. "Nice to finally meet you." "Likewise, Dave. Your wife is quite an asset to our team." The way he emphasized asset made my skin crawl. "She's been adapting well to my management style." Then he placed his hand on my shoulder, leaned in uncomfortably close, and whispered, "You're a lucky man. If she wasn't married." He let the sentence hang there, winked, and walked away. I looked across the room at Melissa, who was watching us with obvious anxiety. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. "What did he say to you?" she asked when I returned to her side. "Nothing important, just introducing himself." She didn't believe me, but didn't press it. We left early, claiming a headache on Melissa's part. Neither of us spoke much in the car on the way home. I was processing what I'd seen and heard, connecting dots I should have connected weeks ago. On the drive home, I couldn't stay silent anymore. "What's going on with Harrington?" Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What do you mean?" "I mean the way he was looking at you all night. The comments, you tensing up every time he came near. Something's wrong, and you're not telling me." She pulled over abruptly, the car skidding slightly on the icy road. When she turned to me, there were tears in her eyes. "I didn't want to worry you," she said, her voice barely audible. "It started with small things, compliments on my outfit, standing too close during meetings. Then came the texts at odd hours, dinner invitations I kept declining. I thought I could handle it. My blood was already beginning to boil. And now? Last week, he called me into his office to discuss my quarterly numbers. He said," her voice cracked, "he said I wasn't meeting expectations, that I needed to show more commitment to the team, that he was considering reorganizing the department unless I became more cooperative. He's threatening your job because you won't sleep with him?" I was already reaching for my phone. "That's illegal. We're calling HR right now." "No!" She grabbed my hand. "HR reports directly to him, and the regional manager plays golf with him every Sunday. Nobody's going to take my side against the golden boy who's increased sales by 30% in one quarter." Then we go to the police. And say what? That he made suggestive comments? That he invited me to dinner? It would be my word against his, and he'd make sure I never worked in real estate again. I stared out the window at the falling snow, trying to control my breathing. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew exactly how you'd react. Because I was scared. Because we need this job, David. We're still paying off my student loans, and we've been saving for a house and..." "Hey," I took her hand. "None of that matters more than you. We'll figure it out together." That night, I held her until she fell asleep, but I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking dark thoughts. The next morning over breakfast, we made a plan. "You need evidence," I said, pouring her coffee. "Record conversations, save texts, keep a journal with dates and times." She nodded, pushing her eggs around her plate. "I can try, but he's careful. Never puts anything inappropriate in writing. Always makes sure no one else is around." "Everyone slips up eventually," I assured her. What I didn't say was what I'd do when he did. What followed was one of the hardest periods of our marriage. Melissa became jumpy, always checking her phone, flinching when it buzzed. She lost weight, started having nightmares. I'd wake up to find her crying silently beside me. "I can quit," she said one night. "We can manage on your salary until I find something else." "Is that what you want?" I asked. She was quiet for a long time. "No. I've worked hard to get where I am. I love my clients. I'm good at what I do. Why should I be the one to leave? Why should I start over because he's a predator?" I was proud of her determination, but worried about the toll it was taking. We started seeing less of our friends, stopped planning for the future. It was like we were in survival mode, just trying to get through each day. For 2 weeks, Melissa tried to gather evidence. She kept her phone recording in her pocket. She documented every inappropriate comment, every accidental touch, every time he called her in for unnecessary late meetings. But Harrington was too shrewd. He knew exactly how far he could push without crossing a line that would hold up in court. There was the time he cornered her in the copy room, blocking the exit while asking questions about her marital satisfaction. The time he changed the location of their one-on-one meeting to a hotel bar without telling her until she was already on her way. The time he put his hand on her lower back while introducing her to clients, letting it linger there just a few seconds too long. Small things, maybe. Things that could be explained away as friendly or misconstrued, but they added up, wearing her down day by day. Then one night, while we were watching TV, Melissa's phone pinged with a text message. Her face went pale as she read it. "What?" I asked. She handed me the phone. "Looking good today, Melissa. That skirt was quite distracting during the meeting. Maybe next time we can discuss your performance review somewhere more private. The Westbrook Hotel has excellent room service." "That's it," I said, jumping up. "That's evidence of harassment." "It's suggestive, but not explicit," she said, deflated. "He could claim he was just complimenting my outfit and suggesting a business dinner." She was right, and we both knew it. We needed something more concrete. The next day, I called in sick to work and followed Harrington. I know how that sounds, but desperate times and all that. I watched him arrive at the office in his shiny BMW 7 Series, noticed how he checked out the receptionist as she walked by, saw him take a 3-hour lunch at an upscale steakhouse with 2 clients. I felt ridiculous at first, slouched in my Honda Civic wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap like some movie detective. But as the day wore on, I started to notice patterns. How he'd casually touch female employees, but never male ones. How his eyes would linger on women walking past. How younger female employees would tense up when he approached. It wasn't just Melissa. He was doing this to others too. After a week of this surveillance, I knew his routine, and I knew where he lived. A massive colonial in Brookline, with perfectly manicured hedges in a 3-car garage. One evening, while Melissa was working late, another urgent project Harrington had assigned, I parked down the street from his house and waited. Around 9 o'clock, a sleek Porsche pulled into his driveway. A minute later, Harrington emerged from his front door, glancing furtively around before getting into the passenger seat. The car drove off and I caught a glimpse of the driver, a young woman with blonde hair who definitely wasn't his wife. I'd seen Mrs. Harrington's picture on the company website, under our community partnerships. Something snapped in me at that moment. Here was this man, making my wife's life miserable, threatening her career, causing us both sleepless nights and anxiety-filled days. And there he went, off to cheat on his wife without a care in the world. In my trunk was my baseball bat from the community league I play in. I didn't plan what happened next. I wish I could say I did, that it was some calculated move and a greater strategy. But the truth is, rage took over. I approached his BMW, looked around to make sure no one was watching, and swung. The sound of glass shattering was both terrifying and satisfying. I hit the headlights, the windshield, dented the hood and doors. With each impact, I saw Melissa's tear-stained face, heard Harrington's smug voice. "Your wife is quite an asset to our team." A light came on in a neighboring house. I froze, bat mid-swing, suddenly aware of what I was doing. I dropped to a crouch behind the car, heart pounding. After a minute, the light went off again. No one had seen me, but it was enough to snap me out of my rage. What was I doing? This wasn't me. I wasn't violent. I didn't break things or lurk in shadows. I was an IT guy who played recreational baseball and did the Sunday crossword. But then I thought about Melissa, about how she'd changed, about the fear that had become her constant companion, and I didn't regret it. Before leaving, I took a note I'd written earlier, in case I decided to leave it on his office door, a more measured plan I'd abandoned, and tucked it under his windshield wiper. Whoever commits adultery lacks sense. He who does it destroys himself. Proverbs 6:32. Driving home, the adrenaline wore off, and horror set in. What had I done? I'd committed a crime. I could go to jail. And worse, I might have made things infinitely harder for Melissa. I stopped at a gas station, scrubbed my hands until they were raw, and threw the baseball cap I'd been wearing into a dumpster. When I got home, I put the bat back in the garage and took the longest shower of my life, as if I could wash away what I'd done. When Melissa came home that night, I said nothing about my vandalism. But the next evening, she burst through the door, eyes wide. "You won't believe what happened. Someone destroyed Harrington's car last night, completely trashed it. He's been on a rampage all day, yelling at everyone, calling the police, threatening to fire the security guard for not having cameras in the executive parking area." "Really?" I tried to sound surprised. "Did they catch who did it?" "No, and get this, apparently there was a note left on the car, but he won't tell anyone what it said. He made the security guard turn off his body cam before he removed it. He seems scared." "Scared? Of what?" "I don't know, but he hasn't bothered me all day. First peaceful workday I've had in months." I felt a mixture of relief and pride, followed quickly by shame. Vandalism wasn't the answer. What if I'd been caught? What if Harrington somehow connected it to Melissa? For a week, things improved. Harrington was distracted with insurance claims and car shopping. He barely acknowledged Melissa, which was fine by her. I started to think maybe my reckless act had somehow worked out. Every day I checked the local news, expecting to see a report about the vandalism. I jumped whenever a police car drove past our house. I started parking my car in the garage instead of the driveway, irrationally afraid someone might notice bat-shaped dents in my trunk. Melissa noticed my nervousness. "Are you okay? You've been jumpy lately." "Just worried about you," I said, which wasn't a lie. Then the text started again. "Miss our chats. My office tomorrow, 6 p.m. Wear something nice. New performance reviews coming up. Melissa showed me the message, her hands shaking. He's getting bolder. We need to get solid evidence, I said. You need to record him saying something explicitly inappropriate. She nodded, determined. I installed a better recording app. It activates automatically when I open his contact or when he calls me. That night, she could barely eat dinner. I watched her push food around her plate, rehearsing responses under her breath. I felt helpless, furious that she had to prepare for psychological battle just to keep her job. You don't have to do this, I said. We can find another way. She looked up, her eyes suddenly clear and determined. No, I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of him having this power over me. Tomorrow I get my evidence. The next day was the longest of my life. I couldn't focus at work, checking my phone every few minutes. My boss noticed my distraction. Everything okay, Mitchell? You've been staring at the same code block for an hour. Fine, I lied. Just a bug I can't figure out. It wasn't until 7:30 p.m. that Melissa finally called. I got it, she said, her voice a mix of triumph and disgust. He flat out said my position evaluation depends on whether I'm willing to join him at his lake house this weekend. Said his wife is visiting her sister, so we'd have privacy to discuss my future with the company. I recorded everything. We listened to the recording together that night. It was damning. Harrington's voice was unmistakable, and his proposition couldn't be interpreted as anything but sexual harassment tied to employment. Now we take this to the regional manager, I said. Melissa bit her lip. What if they still protect him? What if they find some way to discredit me? Then we get a lawyer and sue them into oblivion. But we both knew lawsuits took time, money, and emotional energy we weren't sure we had. And Melissa would likely never work in Boston real estate again, regardless of the outcome. That's when I had another idea. What about his wife? Melissa looked skeptical. What about her? Harrington clearly values his marriage enough to be discreet about his affairs. What if we let his wife know what kind of man she's married to? I don't know, David. It feels wrong to involve her. More wrong than what he's doing to you? More wrong than what he's probably done to other women before you? I took her hands. Look, I'm not saying we blackmail him. I'm saying we give his wife information she deserves to have. After much debate, we decided to try. Through social media, we found Victoria Harrington, an elegant woman who ran a small art gallery in Back Bay, using my work phone so she wouldn't recognize the number later. I called the gallery. Mrs. Harrington, my name is David Mitchell. I need to speak with you about your husband, Victor. It's important. There was a pause. Is he hurt? No, nothing like that. It's about his professional conduct. Another pause. I see. What is this regarding specifically? I'd rather discuss it in person. My wife works for him, and he's been inappropriate. We have evidence. Mr. Mitchell, her voice was controlled, precise. This isn't the first such call I've received. There's nothing you can tell me that I don't already suspect. But if you have actual evidence, that's another matter. We arranged to meet the following evening at her gallery after closing. Melissa was nervous, but I reminded her that we were doing nothing wrong, just telling the truth. The gallery was in an old brownstone, filled with modern art pieces that looked like splatter paint to my untrained eye, but probably cost thousands. The walls were white, the lighting harsh and dramatic. It felt like entering another world, one with its own rules and language. Victoria Harrington was nothing like I expected. I'd pictured a meek, oblivious trophy wife. Instead, we found a sharp, composed woman with tired eyes and a firm handshake. Before you begin, she said, leading us to her office, I want to be clear. I'm not here to protect Victor. Our marriage exists primarily on paper at this point, but I do need to protect myself and my business interests, which are still entangled with his. Her office was minimalist. White desk, sleek computer, a single orchid in a glass vase. No photos, I noticed. No personal touches at all. It was the space of someone who had learned to compartmentalize. We showed her the text messages and played the recording. Her expression didn't change, but I noticed her knuckles whitening as she gripped her desk. This is consistent with his pattern, she said when we finished. Boston is our third city in 5 years. Always the same story. A promotion, a fresh start, promises to change. She looked at Melissa. I'm sorry you've been subjected to this. I'm not the first? Melissa asked. Not even close, Victoria sighed. I've tried to leave before. Each time he threatens to drag me through an ugly divorce. To ruin the gallery, to make sure I end up with nothing. She leaned back in her chair. But this, actual recorded evidence, this could change things. She noticed the healing scrapes on my knuckles. Did you do something to his car, Mr. Mitchell? I hesitated, then nodded. Good, she said simply. Now I may have a solution that helps us all. Victoria explained that she was friends with the company's CEO from college. Something Harrington didn't know. She'd been building a case for divorce, but needed irrefutable evidence of his infidelity and misconduct. Give me a copy of that recording, she said. I won't tell them it came from you, Melissa. I'll say a concerned employee sent it to me anonymously. Will that work? Melissa asked. Won't he just deny it? Victoria's smile was cold. He can try, but George, Mr. Whitaker, has already had concerns about Victor's management style. This will just confirm what he suspected. And with me backing it up, she shrugged elegantly. What about your marriage? I asked. Won't this force a confrontation? Mr. Mitchell, I've been preparing for this confrontation for years. I have my own documentation, my own evidence. I just needed one more piece to make my case bulletproof. You've just given it to me. As we left, Victoria took Melissa's hand. You're brave, she said. Braver than many others have been. Thank you for that. For the next week, we were on edge, waiting for something to happen. Melissa went to work as usual, but Harrington seemed distracted, spending more time on his phone than harassing employees. Twice, she saw him arguing quietly on his phone in the stairwell, his face tense. A week later, Harrington was called to an emergency meeting with the CEO and the company's legal counsel. Melissa said he emerged looking pale, cleared out his office, and was gone by noon. The official announcement stated he had accepted a position at our affiliate office in Anchorage, Alaska. His replacement was a woman named Diana, a veteran in the industry known for her professionalism and mentorship of younger agents. Victoria filed for divorce the same day. A month later, a package arrived at our house. An expensive bottle of wine and a handwritten note. For justice served. Thank you. V. We later heard through industry gossip that Harrington's new position in Alaska came with a significant pay cut and a strict probationary period. After just 2 months there, he was quietly let go. Victoria got the house in Brookline, the gallery, and most of their assets in the divorce. Apparently, the recording had been very useful indeed. As for us, Melissa thrived under Diana's leadership, eventually getting promoted to team lead. We finally bought the house we'd been saving for. Nothing fancy, but it's ours, with a small porch where we sometimes sit in the evenings with a glass of wine, marveling at how everything worked out. I'm not proud of vandalizing Harrington's car. I don't recommend criminal damage as a solution to workplace harassment, but I am proud that we didn't stay silent, that we fought back in our own way. Sometimes the system works if you find the right pressure points. The bat, by the way, is still in my trunk, just in case. It's been 2 years since everything happened with Harrington. Life has settled into a pleasant rhythm. Melissa's career is flourishing. She's now managing her own team at Paramount. We're expecting our first child in a few months. Mostly we don't talk about what happened. But last week something strange occurred. Melissa came home from work looking disturbed. What's wrong? I asked. I saw him today, she said quietly. Harrington. He was at Starbucks near the office. My pulse quickened. Did he see you? Did he say anything? He saw me, just stared for a moment, then looked away. He looked different, worn down, not so polished anymore. Good, I said, perhaps more viciously than intended. There's more, she hesitated. I heard from Lucy in HR that he's been trying to get his job back, claiming he was unfairly pushed out, threatening to sue. My fist clenched involuntarily. He wouldn't dare. That's just it. I don't think he can. Apparently the company kept a file on him. Other complaints, other women. They just never did anything about it until Victoria came forward. Now they're using it as insurance against any legal action from him. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt angry all over again. So they knew. All that time they knew what he was doing, and they protected him. Melissa nodded, looking equally disgusted. Corporate America at its finest. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the other women who'd suffered before Melissa, whose complaints had been filed away and ignored. About how close we'd come to being victimized with no recourse. About how many Harringtons were out there, still untouched, still preying on employees who couldn't afford to lose their jobs. The next morning I made a decision. I contacted a friend who works in employment law and asked for advice on starting a support network for victims of workplace harassment. Something outside the corporate structure, where people could share resources, strategies, and yes, evidence. Melissa loved the idea. We could help people find pro bono legal representation, share templates for documentation, create a community where people don't feel so alone. Within a month, we'd set up a website and scheduled our first in-person meeting. We were careful. No naming of specific individuals or companies without evidence. No encouragement of illegal activities like, say, vandalizing cars. At our first meeting, I was shocked by how many people showed up. Men and women both, from various industries, all with stories similar to ours. The relief on their faces at simply being believed was palpable. Victoria Harrington was among them. She'd gotten wind of our initiative through mutual connections and offered her gallery as a meeting space. She also had connections with local journalists interested in covering workplace harassment issues. The problem isn't just the harassers, she told the group. It's the systems that protect them. The HR departments that exist to shield companies, not employees. The forced arbitration clauses that keep victims silent. She looked at me with knowing eyes. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. I never told you this, she said quietly, but I knew it was you who damaged Victor's car. My blood ran cold. How? The Bible verse. It was exactly the same one my father quoted when he caught Victor with another woman at our wedding rehearsal dinner. Only family knew about that incident. Are you going to report me? I asked, calculating how long the statute of limitations might be for criminal damage. She laughed, a genuine sound I hadn't heard from her before. Report the man who helped me escape a 15-year prison of a marriage? I think not. Besides, she lowered her voice, between us, I keyed his replacement car myself. Not as dramatic as your baseball bat approach, but satisfying nonetheless. I stared at her in disbelief, then found myself laughing too. Sometimes justice comes from unexpected places. We've held monthly meetings ever since. Our network has grown. We've helped 3 people successfully navigate harassment claims, connected dozens with proper legal counsel, and created a community where survivors support each other. As for Harrington, last I heard, he was working as a mid-level sales rep at a struggling firm in New Hampshire. His attempts to get rehired at Paramount went nowhere. Rumor has it he's had to sell his lake house to cover legal bills. Melissa sometimes sees him at industry events. She says he always looks away first. I keep the baseball bat, now retired from both community league games and vigilante justice, mounted on our garage wall. Melissa thinks it's just a memento from my playing days. But whenever I look at it, I remember that cold October night when I decided enough was enough. When I chose action over helplessness. Was it the right thing to do? Probably not. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat.
The moral of this story highlights that true justice requires patience, strategy, and intelligence rather than reckless anger. It underscores the importance of standing up against workplace harassment and protecting the people we love in a smart, effective way. Ultimately, it proves that toxic power is built on fragile lies. When the truth is meticulously exposed, abusers will inevitably face the severe consequences of their actions, while integrity and resilience will prevail.